think directly to this, the role of empathy, and that's the conversation which we enjoy so much in many, here in the report, the generation of the report, that was a big conversation as well. Empathy oriented education, empathy based learning. And I'm wondering if you might say a few words about that role. And one of the frames we use, as you have noticed in the report, is looking at empathy at 4 levels. Empathy with self, and again, what is the self? But I love that, as Ivan also loves it, and this is a very critical type of reflection. And even though it may seem very philosophical, it's fundamentally pragmatic. So empathy at the level of self, at the level of others, that's the normal sphere, empathy with other human beings, but also empathy with nature, and then empathy with past and future generations, right? So these are the kind of levels that we're looking at. And what do you see as maybe a needed direction, or how would you encourage more empathy-based or empathy-oriented education?
I love that. I fully agree. First of all, empathy is really important, yeah, because it brings us back to ourness, and it takes you out of meanness, because meanness can also start to feel very alone. So the interesting thing about, and this is, it's a bit of a paradox with empathy, because empathy can connect you with the loneliness of others. So sometimes people who are really empathic feel also suffer more. So again, you know, to every gift there is an opposite too. So we have to be aware always, you know. So the beautiful thing about encouraging empathy is that we enhance sensitivity, yeah? But heightened and activated sensitivity without at the same time the capacity to do something about it in a meaningful way can create problems in human beings. And so this is again something we need to be aware of. Yeah? Because if you suffer with and you feel the suffering and you don't feel there's anything you can do about it, it can go into despair and hopelessness. And if we don't know how to go and move through hopelessness and despair, it's the protection mechanism to that emotion often becomes cynicism. And then we're promoting sensitivity and empathy, and then we end up with something that's completely opposite to that. So we really need to, in a systemic way again, have the understanding of if we're stimulating this ability within the human being, but if it cannot find its right expression in the relationships, in the interactions, and in action, in meaningful action, in a way that we feel we can also help create those changes that are necessary. Because empathy informs us. We have to remember it informs us. So what do I do now with that, what I'm informed by? So if we cannot give that a healthy expression, then it becomes blocked energy. And if it is blocked, and now we are sensitive, it can create the opposite cycle. Yeah? So then it can lead to cynicism, frustration, anger. Yeah? And so in some people it can lead to the anger cycle, anger, frustration. Other people it can become more cold, the energy, so that it becomes cynical. Yeah? Other people may go into grief and despair or fear. Yeah? So this is, again, we have to always consider that these beautiful qualities that we want to stimulate, they need a context, they need an environment of application. So essential.
So can I jump into
yes.
I think it's what you're saying. Well, my hypothesis that you have this experience of a healer, and the healer obviously cannot do without empathy, without sympathizing, without compassion. But also, if you take too much of that into yourself, that's something that can also destroy the one who's trying to heal. So how do you find this balance? How do you find it? Where is the healthy balance between empathizing, sympathizing, expressing one compassion, and transforming pain into love and bringing healing energy. What is your experience? What is this healthy relationship?
So the healthy relationship for me is always to, when you work with empathy or sympathy, or you feel the other person deeply, is that you focus on their direct connection with life. So if you do that, you empower. Otherwise, you take on. And when people take on the pain of others, they can become martyrs. They can even feel like a victim, or they can go into kind of a false helper. Yeah, I need to be needed. That's kind of mental model behind it, which can give tremendous power or false power for people as well. So what's important is that as you empathize with the person, you don't support victimhood in any way. Yeah, you focus in on their own capacity to learn and to grow and to actualize even through the most difficult experiences and the most painful. So what you focus in on is that light in them. That's what you energize. So you keep really clear to that. So I always make sure in my work I stay very clear and connected, with the wisdom of life. But I see the other person also as an expression of that same wisdom. And then what you can see is that sometimes the person doesn't know how to connect with that. But just because they don't know how to connect with that, it doesn't mean that it's not there. So if we remind them and we kind of guide them back to their own wisdom, they reconnect. If we take over and then start to provide solutions for, we actually take them away from themselves. And it doesn't empower. So what's important, as with all things, empathy is an ability, but you need to have an understanding of a purpose for that ability. So how can you, and that's also what your question is really nice, how can you apply that sensitivity and that ability in a purposeful way, in a way that it makes the person stronger in themselves, in their authentic self, in the real self. Yeah, brings them deeper back into themselves, in their own resourcefulness. So focus, it's what you how you see the person. It's like when I see a person in crisis, I see at the same time a butterfly. Yeah. So when I see a breakdown, I see the possibility for a breakthrough. So when we empathize, very important that we don't only tune in to what is now becoming like the phenomenal world or the events. Go deeper than that. See the process behind it. Because what rises up in the conscious mind for the person in all kinds of emotional states, yeah, that what rises up may also be a flashing out. But behind that is a deeper wisdom process. So when you keep your focus on that, you keep the awareness on that, somehow the other person resonates back into that wisdom field as well. And what happens for people then is that even, it's almost like they come back to that body and to the center of that being and they go, whoa, this is hard, but I can do it. And it's not the end of the day. And you know what? I can grow through that. Yeah. So how you use that empathy, what you focus in on, what you give direction to, what you're energized by your attention is essential to the outcome. And therefore we need to be so aware of what we are projecting. Because sometimes for empaths, they can also kind of fall into the trick of saying, oh, I'm feeling all your pain. Oh, really? You know, I mean, we are resonant beings. So sometimes our own pain gets triggered in the process. And sometimes people who are empathic, if they don't permission their own pain and their own healing, they may need to almost attach to the pain of someone else in order to feel their own pain. And then things can quickly get nested in the wrong way, you know? So it's really important that we are very aware always of, how am I perceiving this? Am I labeling this? What am I projecting onto that experience? Are these truly the feelings of someone else, or are they my feelings too? And what is the degree of my own emotion in that? Yeah. Then the energy remains clear. And in that clarity, it can flow. And life knows how to transform it and transmute it, because kind of energy likes to go back into the wholeness naturally. Yeah. It knows how to restore itself. So we work with that.